If you haven't heard by now, the new meta within the gaming industry is suing people, throwing lawsuits at people that you don't like. We've been seeing this when it comes to Nintendo and how they've been suing the Palworld developers for making a game based on the concept of Pokemon. I've also made a video on how parents are suing AAA gaming developers for how they've incorporated loot boxes and gambling within their games. But now we flip the page to a new chapter of lawsuits, specifically against Ubisoft. 2024 has not been an ideal year for this company. In October, they were sued for stealing player personal information through an account linking feature and subsequently giving that information to the lizard people that run Meta. But now they've been sued by 2 players in California for being dishonest and outright scummy to their customers. Now you may be wondering, what do I mean by that? Well, it all surrounds their 2014 game entitled The Crew, an online open world racing game taking place in various parts of the United States. In March of this year, the game was shut down due to, quote, server infrastructure and licensing constraints, something that would be seen as a normal operation for a 10-year-old multiplayer game if it wasn't for Ubisoft being ran by a bunch of dumbasses. After shutting the game down, Ubisoft would revoke licenses from players who had bought the game, thereby denying them access to the game entirely. To add salt into this wound, they would also deny players from receiving refunds. To add even more salt, players would discover an unused code for a solo offline mode for the game, thus highlighting how incompetent and evil Ubisoft are when it comes to game preservation as well as respecting their customers overall. Basically, to summarize all this, Ubisoft shut down the game and denied customers, people that actually paid the game, from even accessing the game entirely. But now we are here. This past month, a class action lawsuit has been filed on behalf of 2 longtime Californian players against Ubisoft for doing what I just described. It cites Ubisoft misleading players into believing that the game in which they spent their hard-earned money on would be a game that they would own forever. Because according to common sense, that's usually how transactions work. Ubisoft ultimately failed in being honest with informing players that instead of permanently owning the game, they would be receiving temporarily licenses to the game. Licenses that, despite how much progress and hours you put into playing the game, a license that could be revoked whenever the parent company felt like the fun is to be over. Why the state in which these players are from is made relevant due to a law passed in California back in September. According to this law, companies have to be honest with the customer on how these digital pieces of media are licenses to the product as opposed to direct permanent ownership of the product, which is why physical games will always be king. The lawsuit expresses that the players feel that they were, quote, left with a skeleton of what you thought you paid for. And yeah, I mean, even though this game is a decade old and probably doesn't have that many online players still active, it's a statement that I ultimately agree with. In no way did Ubisoft ever communicate that one day they would outright deny players from being able to play this game, even if they purchased it. Given that no one was under the impression that the game that they spent money on was merely a temporary license, an analogy could be made with my personal life when I play guitar butt-ass naked on my futon, only for Fender, the guitar manufacturer, to forcibly recall the guitar and steal the product that I purchased. I know it's completely different things, a guitar and a video game, but it's in essence the same exact bullshit. You should keep the product that you pay for, and this thought alone is why I agree with this lawsuit, something that I normally don't do.